Human beings are instinctively drawn to light because there's beauty in light. This morning, when I opened the curtains and I saw that there was a little bit of light more than the last few months, I was very, very happy. And I was just thinking about that this morning, that it's such a joy to see the light of the sun rather than the darkness of winter. And so I know that when there's winter and there's darkness, especially in some countries where it's extremely dark for the whole day practically, there's a lot of depression. So I think that light not only uplifts us and inspires us, but it's very beautiful. And so I think it's also a reminder that when we think about light, it's not just the physical light, but it's the light within. It's the light of purity, the light of love, the light of truth. And so light is something that we love instinctively. When I started Raj Yoga meditation, and I was being told about consciousness and the soul, it was described to me as a luminous, conscient, sentient being. And I could actually immediately experience it. And so I think that the actual form of the soul is a luminous form, light. And within that light, there is that consciousness and awareness of identity. I know who I am. I am this being of light. And when I not just believe it, but deeply understand it and realize it, then literally it's as if somebody's pressed a button and the light is shining. And people often have visions of light. When they see yogis, they see the light shining in the forehead, they see an aura of light around them. So I think that it's a reality that this is what the soul is, a luminous point. When people have had visions of God, many have reported seeing light. And they know that it's not just the light from a bulb or the light from the sun, but they feel the vibrations of the qualities of the divine, the source. They can feel the source of light and love. And so they recognize that this is that being who is the divine, the supreme, the source. And just as souls are a conscient point of light, in the same way, the Supreme Soul, the form is the same, just an infinitesimal spark of light. But within that light is the ocean of love, the ocean of truth, the ocean of beauty and goodness. And so we can actually experience this when I'm in the awareness of the soul, I, the being of light, and I think of God, the Supreme, as that being of light, and I feel that connection. There are two things that happen. I draw peace from the divine within myself, a peace that surpasseth understanding, something that is not just intellectual understanding, but also that peace is able to awaken my own natural, original state of peace and truth and love. And so I think it's such a beautiful idea because all traditions through all ages have remembered light as something sacred, whether it's the burning of a candle, whether it's the burning in India of a diya, a homemade earthenware lamp. So light has been commemorated through all the different traditions of the world. So I think there's something universal here. It sounds a paradox, but yet in fact it's a reality that the deeper you go into even matter and you're able to explore the power contained within just an atom, something that's invisible to the naked eye. Well, we're talking about the physical dimension. But when you go into the non-physical, the non-material dimension, and you have this awareness of the inner being that I am as that being of light, and you know that that whole life source, the living energy that I am, is contained within this point of light. In that awareness, then you can understand how the divine, the source, is also infinitesimal. And yes, the qualities of the divine are infinite. You know, I was walking into a room the other day, and even from the corridor, I could smell the scent of lilies. And when I walked into the room, I saw these beautiful lilies in a vase. But the scent had gone beyond the boundaries of that room, and I could smell it even in the corridor itself. And so you can see how here's a flower, very specific in one location, but this fragrance pervades the whole room and even beyond the walls of that room. And so even on a physical level, we know that impact and size are not necessarily connected. And so the infinitesimal source, but yet the qualities that emanate from that source are vast, are infinite. And wherever I am in the world, I can connect with the divine and have that experience of each one of those qualities reaching me. We can only reach the limits of the physical world through our physical senses. But if I go beyond my physical senses into the inner being that I am, the soul, my mind is not contained or restricted by physical boundaries. It can cross time, it can cross the barriers of distance, but it can also cross the barrier between the physical dimension and move into the subtle dimension, and beyond that, the supreme dimension. So 3 different dimensions. The physical, where there's physical bodies and matter and the drama of life goes on. Then the subtle dimension, where I can go with the power of my thoughts and my feelings and my consciousness, and there I can experience the subtle angelic beings, and I can even experience my own subtle angelic form, which is similar to this one, but not of bones and flesh. And so that's maybe something that at some point people might want to experiment with. But beyond that, there's another dimension, the dimension of what in India is described as the Brahma Tattva, the element of light, not your earth, air, water, fire, space, but beyond that, the 6th element, the element of light. And it's a space which has no boundaries, no walls. And it's not really above or below, but it's beyond. And so I can only go there in the awareness of the soul. Any consciousness of this, and gravity pulls me down. But in the awareness of the soul, detached from the consciousness of this, I can travel to that dimension and experience this infinite beauty of light, of purity, of peace, a total state of stillness. And this is the home. And to my surprise, what I've discovered through sharing these ideas with many people of many backgrounds all over the world, there are some people who, in a conscious way, have rejected the notion of the divine until they start meditating and they're learning to go beyond the limits of this. Then they begin to experience the divine. But even quite apart from that, even before they actually begin to practice, when I've spoken to them about this dimension of light, of silence and purity, some of them will say, I've had an experience of that. Somewhere within the recording of the soul, there is this memory of being in a sweet home, a very sweet feeling of being back home and that world of light. And so it's interesting that within the memory track that's recording everything within the soul, that experience of being in a home is actually triggered when somebody starts thinking about the dimension beyond sound, beyond movement, to a dimension where there's total stillness. In the connection of soul with the source, the process of healing of the soul begins through the love and the process of purification through the power of truth and purity. And the way I see this is I see my patterns of behavior changing. Maybe I was a little impatient before. There was a tendency for anger if things were not going the way I wanted. There was a tendency to get attached and be possessive. So one begins to see how the light has such power through the truth and purity that it's able to transform human patterns of behavior and also bring about healing within the self in terms of the soul and the trauma we've been through. But also, connected with the divine, the source, we're able to be instruments to be able to share that healing light of love across the whole of the human family so that everyone is able to experience something reaching them which was not of their origin. They were maybe just lost in their self-pity, or they were lost in their own trauma, whatever it is. And suddenly it felt as if there was a light that touched them. And another process began, a different way of thinking, a different consciousness and attitude. Now, they weren't making any effort for that, but that light reached them somehow. And maybe when we have what we call our meditation for healing others, sending our best wishes and good wishes to all, we can actually think of anybody we know who is going through a difficult time, physical, emotional, spiritual, and collectively 2, 5, 20, 100, however many, the number doesn't matter. But when there's this collective connection and we're holding that person just for a moment between the divine and me, and we are sending our good wishes to that individual, maybe that's what's reaching them. They don't know that there's 100+ people praying for them or sending them good thoughts and meditation, but they feel it, and they sometimes are able to tell others, and we get feedback. Well, something happened and things changed for me. But also, this healing light of love has to reach the animal kingdom so that they are healed from our acts of violence. We have inflicted huge violence on the animal kingdom, but also nature itself, all the biological life that exists. We can share our thoughts of purity and peace and God's light and love with nature, giving a tiny fraction back to how much nature has done for us. Nature's abundance and nature's beauty, even now after multi-thousands of years, is so visible. And what have we done? We've trampled on nature, we've violated nature, we've broken all the rules of the natural laws of the universe. There has been huge harm, violence, hinsa done against nature. But nature continues to give us. Yes, we see the elements erupting with force in some places, but comparatively speaking, most of the Earth's population is still being sustained by nature. And yes, we're beginning to see the comeback of all our violence. And so I don't need to explain the detail, but you know all the natural disasters that are happening everywhere. So it's time for us to connect with the One so that those healing thoughts and vibrations can impact nature itself also and restore harmony once again. Knowledge has been described as light. God has been described as a sun who radiates that knowledge and gives us that light. And so I would recommend to anybody who's interested in this subject to connect with the Brahma Kumari Center or our UN office, and they'll be able to put you on track. But the point is that, and all our services are totally free of cost, but the point is that I need to understand, firstly, the identity of the inner being. I can feel the light that I am, but what are the ingredients that make up this light? And I discover ideas about thoughts and feelings and consciousness and patterns of behavior and much more. So firstly, I need to understand that. Then I can start experimenting with this awareness of I, the light shining in the forehead. Secondly, I need to understand the source. Who is this being? What is this being? And what role does this being have in terms of humanity and where humanity is at? Is there a role that God actually plays? I believe so. Because where human beings haven't been able to succeed, surely the parent, the creator, is concerned with love and compassion to help the children, to help the creation. And so I believe this is that time when there's intervention within human activity by the divine, so that we're able then to create a connection with the divine and draw that light within ourselves. You know, when the day begins and there's sunshine, the energy that you have is tremendous, and you can do things that you were a little bit tired during the night, you were a little bit sleepy, very sleepy maybe, but once the day begins, you're ready for action. Same thing. Souls have become very tired, exhausted. This is why we see the increase to the pandemic proportions of mental illness. But when we have that connection with the source, that light, we're able to feel that energy reviving us, waking us up, and we're able to do things that normally we'd say, oh, that's very difficult, or that's impossible. But this energy allows us to achieve loving cooperation, collaboration between human beings, between the nation states, so that we can tackle all the critical issues of our time. Because it's this coming together that's going to make a difference. And so I believe that as we feel that connection and experience the power of that within ourselves, we can set the world right again.